All right, back with another video. Exercise 2 of 7 that every athlete and boxer needs to be doing. Today, based on the setup, we're getting into hip thrust. Now, what is hip thrust from a layman's standpoint, or just from an easier way to understand it? It is hip extension in the horizontal plane, and the reason why we are in a horizontal plane is because we want to focus on a muscle group, and it is our glutes. Now, when we're doing it as an athlete and a boxer, we are not concerned about glute growth the same way that a woman would who wants to go ahead and grow their glutes, or anybody, bodybuilder as well, who wants to grow that muscle group. We are more concerned about strength, and that's for the reason why I, once again, shout out to Dietz, why I use our compound lifts for complex training. So I would pair the hip thrust with a low-level plyometric or a higher plyometric, something athletic or sports-specific to pair with this strength exercise. But the rep ranges we're going to stay at is we're going to stay around 3 to 5 because we are working on the intensity of the bar and try to be as strong as possible as opposed to growing the actual glute. Now, if you do need to work on growing that glute because it's a lagging muscle group, then we would up the rep range for you. But once again, for athletes just in general, we want to keep it at a 3 to 5 rep range at a certain intensity or a certain weight, because the idea and the analogy behind it, or the way to think about it is the more that you practice something, the better you get at that thing. So from a rep range standpoint, if I practice hip thrust more, that muscle that I'm practicing or that muscle group that I'm working on is going to grow. Granted, the other variables of eating right and then the system over time, which is what I have for you guys, a complete program system, because it's not going to be one exercise, it's not going to be one rep, it's not going to be one drill, it's not going to be one trick that gets you to where you need to be. It's going to be an entire system over time. So let's get into the hip thrust for you guys. I already have the bench here. I already have the bar loaded because I want to save you guys some time. So bench height is important. It's going to dictate how low I need to go back onto the ground because my starting position is going to be low. So bench heights have like 17 inches, 14 inches. It all depends on what the bench height is. So if you're in your own gym or you're working on your own, it's important for us to understand how where our back position is on this bench. So I'm going to start with putting the bar about right here. The setup for this is very important because as we get stronger, we need to make sure that we have good technique. Most people get injured before they actually start the rep and after because they don't include that as intentional for how they need to start with things. So before I even get into my first set, I need to make sure that my body is braced and that my core is locked in and I'm tight and I'm ready for the activity I'm about to go through. So first thing I'm going to do is, for me, this bench is a little bit high, so I'm going to push against the bench, and then I'm going to go ahead and climb. So if you see how I did that there. Now I'm going to work my back up to where my shoulder blades begin, or if you're thinking about where my lat ends as far as on my back. And then now I want to position my feet the way they're supposed to go ahead and be positioned. I want to feel this in my butt. So at this point, what I have this bar is on my hip, and then I'm going to bend at the waist. Then I'm going to straighten with the hips by squeezing my butt. Bend at the waist, straighten by squeezing my butt. Bend at the waist, straighten by squeezing my butt. And so if you notice, what I'm doing is my chin is tucked all the way through. The reason why that is because I don't want to overextend in my spine. And if I keep my eyes up, then my spine is going to come all the way up, and then the tension of this bar or the intensity of this bar is going to go to my lower back. I don't want this in my lower back. I want this predominantly in my glutes. So we'll go 2 more reps looking at what that looks like. Rib cage down, squeezing coming through. Rib cage down, squeezing coming through. So that is a bilateral barbell hip thrust, both legs. If you don't have access to a barbell and you have access to a gym, all you need is something that you can put your back on. You can squeeze from there and you can change the tension accordingly. The other variation that we can go through is single leg hip thrust. Now, I always talk about symmetry. This is an opportunity for, if you have your right leg stronger or your left leg stronger, this is an opportunity to work on those individual weaknesses. So I am going to show one of those, and there is a slight difference in the variation, not only from the single leg aspect, but also from what I told you about my chin. When I'm going single leg with this, I am able to take my head high, and the reason for that is because I only have one leg or one side of my body that's doing this, so I don't really have to worry about overextending in my spine because I want full extension or full squeeze with my glutes coming all the way through. Now, even though I am horizontal here, I am still thinking vertical. So instead of thinking about coming like straight up, I actually want to squeeze to almost push back. And the way I can explain this to you guys is That movement that I was just doing there is very similar to doing this to this to this, because as an athlete, unless you're doing floor work and whatnot, you're predominantly going to be on your feet. But we do want to have all this intensity go towards our butt. So the single leg emphasis for you is here, still bending at the waist, straighten at the waist, eyes go high so I get full extension. This leg, I want to come all the way up, almost like I'm sprinting, but the working leg is doing everything. Release the squeeze or bend at the waist, bend at the hips, squeeze. Back down, then I come up again. So we have the bilateral, which is with the barbell, both sides of our body. We have the unilateral or single leg, which is one side of our body for the symmetry. That is exercise 2 of 7 that I suggest every athlete and boxer to do. Once again, the rep range that we're keeping at is 3 to 5 because we're working on strength, not hypertrophy or growth. If you do need to work on growth or hypertrophy, we would up those rep ranges for you. How many times should you do this a week? Realistically, you should be doing one day on a vertical aspect from an athletic standpoint, one day on a horizontal day, and then also another day where you can potentially focus on rotation. But that's just kind of an idea. Once again, it's not one exercise, it's not one rep, it's not one set, it's your entire system. If you need one, I have you. If you also want to learn how to make your own system, I got you as well. But that is exercise 2 of 7 that every athlete and boxer should be doing. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Comments, questions, that's what I make videos off. But I'll see y'all in the next one.